So I want to do a PSA on how social media can get you into trouble. Do not, and I mean this in the most kindest way, but please don't use social media as a way to vent, especially especially about your coworkers, your employers or employees. As a Florida attorney, we get every month we get what's called the Florida Bar Weekly, and it's essentially a newspaper that keeps us up to date on what's happening in the Florida bar, any new rules, any new regulations, anything that we can vote on to either improve or change, or even the president of the Florida bar. So we have those opportunities and that information given to us once a month. Along with this newspaper, we get a section which is called disciplinary actions, which will disclose attorneys who are being suspended, reprimanded, or disbarred. And in those sections, it will tell us who the attorney is, what happened, what was the sanction, and a little synopsis of what got the attorney into this type of trouble. So as I'm perusing around this particular article and this section of the newspaper, I find that there was a assistant DA who got himself into a lot of hot water based on some things that he ranted and raved over online. He used social media as a venue to vent and voice his frustrations. So apparently this attorney had gotten into some trouble and the court held him in contempt. And because he was being held in contempt, they did an emergency suspension. So the Florida bar has the right to suspend an attorney from practicing law immediately if they feel that that attorney is going to cause harm to the general public or is doing something that violates the code of ethics. So they can immediately suspend us for doing something that is either illegal, unethical, or a harm to the general public. While this attorney is waiting for the bar to make a determination on the charges against him, he decides to get on social media and start venting about his position and how he feels about things and how he feels about the people involved in this investigation. So he goes on, he's in a suspension at this point, and he is, they're trying to figure out what's going on. They have a misdemeanor charge against him, and it's pending before a judge. And so he decides to go on social media and tell the judge off. Tell the judge, and these are just nice ways of saying what he actually wrote, but he says, "Dear Judge so-and-so, don't F with a public defender's constitutional rights. You effing evil, and see you next Tuesday. I'm dropping a JQC complaint on your corrupt A for the unlawful contempt BS tomorrow with all the hate and anger in my body." And he signs off with his own name on social media. He then continues to send a slew of other tweets on social media in regards to his pending case. So I am not a criminal attorney by any means, but I know enough that if you are being investigated for anything, the best course of action is to shut your mouth. You do not voluntarily say things, implicate yourself, or even volunteer your version of the story without having your attorney present. Now, in this case, he is an attorney, so you would think that he would understand the due process that attorneys go through. And I understand that the bar side of things is administrative law and not criminal law, but in this case, I think we could all safely assume that anything we say can and will be used against you. Anyway, he didn't do himself any favors by going off on the judge and threatening to do some heinous acts to some of the parties involved. And when he did that, he essentially threatened certain parties, like the judge and the attorney general, and went on and on and on and on as to all of the people that had essentially screwed him over and how this system was so bad and so corrupt. So not only is he being investigated for the first infraction that he has done, he's now put himself in hot water for making threats and for threatening people's lives. And now he's got other criminal sanctions. So what could have just been a one infraction, which was essentially a misdemeanor, has now evolved into several felonies. So the fact that there is social media posts, there's evidence that he wrote it, there's the fact that he's writing his name, and whenever he speaks, he's confirming that he's saying these things based on the information I have. That's what it seems like. I don't think things are going to go really well for him. So what's the takeaway? The takeaway is that all things remain the same. You know how we see in movies and TV series, they give you your Miranda rights. You have the right to remain silent. You have a right to an attorney. All of these Miranda rights are given to you because you are to have the information before you open your mouth to say anything, right? And in this particular case, when you're litigating something or you're involved in litigation, using social media as a platform is never the best thing to do, because all of that information can be used against you. Now, there's certain circumstances where you would have a court order that says you have a gag order. They say you can't say anything, you can't talk to the media, you can't say your side of the story. And that's just because they're trying to preserve the type of procedural case that you have, if it's administrative, criminal, or whatever. They're trying to make sure that that's not something that's going to essentially influence the people that are making these decisions, such as judges or even the attorneys, or if you have a jury, the jury. So you want to keep this as pure as possible. So what is the bottom line to this? When you are being investigated, when you are being litigated against, when they are trying to take your license away, you need to shut up. You need to close your mouth and you need to say nothing further. Let things proceed forward. If you have an attorney, let your attorney speak for you. Do not ever use social media as a platform to get even, vindictive, or even say spiteful things. Even if you don't mean them, they can and will be used against you. Now, this is a little bit out of the scope of what I normally talk about, but social media is such a big thing. I wanted to talk about that today. But like always, if you enjoyed this content, please don't forget to like and subscribe.